show up back at, is it called A. Leonard then, or what?
No, it's called L&H Packaging.
L&H Packaging, back when you got out of college. The first week you're at work, your dad calls you.
First day,
Your dad calls you into his office, first day you're at work, okay?
Well, yeah, I go to HR, I'm doing all my orientation videos and all that. Some of you heard this story. But he calls me over, he says, hey, your dad wants to see you. Okay, so I go to his office, and he has an article on his desk from the Wall Street Journal, and it's from third generation businesses. And he slides it across the desk to me, and it's about how they kill the business.
Welcome to the company.
Yeah, so remember I told you my dad's a little old school. And I don't remember how my dad said it, but it was a very direct message about don't mess this thing up. You know, the odds are against you. I think it's 1 in 4,000 companies get to third generation, and 80% of the GDP in the U.S. is family-owned businesses. So just think about the turnover in businesses. So yeah, he was trying to tell me there was a challenge. The other thing he had on his desk was he had a list of all the meat packers that were in San Antonio that were doing the same thing we were doing when he started. And he was crossing them off. We were like the last one. And so he was like, look, you know, he had both of those. He was like, this and this. You got an uphill battle is what he was trying to say. And you know, I just kind of parked that. I didn't really understand what all that meant and how that was gonna play in everything, but I just knew, man, that's pretty impactful things right there.
Yeah.
Odds are against us a bit.
Yeah, so you recognized it, felt some of the pressure.
Yeah, that was like in '96 when I graduated college, and then just kind of parked that. And then I just went into, I was a supervisor, I was into sales, I was into a sales rep for L&H and for Shirlene, and then I ultimately was VP of sales. So I wasn't in a place where I could, you know, directly impact all of that stuff day one, but you know, I just kind of parked it and tried to work hard.
Yeah, and what you did, you worked hard,
Yeah.
and then I think, 7, 8, 9 years later, you're the early 30s?
Yeah, 31.
And there was a big transition coming along in the company at that point.
So I was then president of the company, and we had a third generation business. We had my dad and 2 aunts owned the business, and they wanted to get the stock into the third generation. You know, they wanted to start that, and so they wanted to kind of get that transition started. Well, my dad went to my aunts and said, hey, I want to give Neal all the voting stock of the company. I'm 31 years old. You know, thankfully my 2 wise aunts said, no, I think that's not quite a good thing for a 31-year-old who has no experience. And so they pushed back and they said, we want to put in a board of directors. But they weren't business experienced folks. They were just saying, let's put in a family board of directors. You know, basically kind of divide this thing up. And I was going, man, that's going to be tough. It's going to be like, you know, a bunch of chiefs, not, you know, not really like, it's going to be hard to manage, because then it was going to put a lot of pressure on the family. And so I started. First thing was, he said, you need to go out there and talk to your aunts. So I'm, you know, going out there, and I realized within the first 5 minutes I was in way over my head. I said, okay, this is a problem. There's tension here, there's things I can't handle, and 2 things I'm thankful for. I was in a YPO forum that I talked to them, I was talking to them about it, and they were helping advise me. And then I was on a YPO blog, a family business blog, and I was realizing that people call them family business advisors. And I said, man, maybe we could use that. So I called in a family business advisor, and he said, yeah, you need to put in a board, but put in outside directors on that board. And I said, you know, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. And my dad wanted nothing to do with the board of directors, because, you know, they slow you down, and you know, they're just not going to be good for your business. I've been doing this all my life, you know, kind of thing. It's worked. It worked for your dad, your granddad. I mean, and I didn't know any different. So at first I was going, man, he didn't want to put in a board. I was kind of between the 2.
Yeah, sure.
And finally, my brother said, Neal, I think we can do this with outside advisors. And so I said, all right, well, let me go talk to Dad. So I went and talked to him. I said, you're trying to transition the stock to me, right? He goes, yeah. I said, so it's my stock? He goes, yeah. I said, all right, well then, I think we can do this with outside directors. And he was like, you are out of your blankety blank mind. And But, you know, it's your funeral, but go for it. We had two board meetings with those outside directors, and he came back to me and said I was wrong. He goes, they're great for our business. They're gonna help us, they're gonna help you. And so they've kind of been mentoring me ever since then, because
Wow.
I didn't.
Yeah, so what is it about a third generation business, that this dynamics, what do you think that interplays into that? It's not necessarily that people are bad.
Yeah.
It's, what is it that makes it harder, you think?
Well, there's a lot of things at play. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500 and the turnover in the last 75 years, it's changed, right? The businesses are different from just over time.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses have to transform, markets change, you know, different demographics and dynamics are constantly moving. So it's a challenge just keeping a business alive without the challenge of now you've got this family ownership and dynamic. You put on a family ownership dynamic, and now you go from a single owner to maybe siblings, and frequently there's maybe a son and a daughter, or son and two daughters, and the daughter says, well, I don't want to be down there, just let me be an owner, and you know, me and my husband, he has his own career, and so it's kind of like, well, I'm making all the decisions, and that's kind of the way it was in our deal. If there are multiple siblings that want to be involved and run the company, then it becomes fireworks in a lot of cases. But by the time you get to cousins, and then you get to second cousins, so you've got to try to, it's similar to, I think, a publicly traded company. They have shareholder relations, right? They have whole departments that do communications with shareholders. We have the same thing, but it's me, you know? or it's I have to work on that piece too. So I have to kind of transition them and the ownership, because it just changes. You know, what my granddad could say, you know what, I'm just gonna, he used to call it $50. Any IRS in here? But he would run things through the business, you know, because they were tax deductible, because it was his business. You know, might as well. I mean, yeah, that's business expense, that's business expense. And yeah, that's all well and good, but now you got 8 families doing it, you got 15 families doing it. You know, it can be cumbersome. And costly, and so it becomes a challenge.
Well, it just seems like it's very providential that you were at that age, to have, God gave you some wisdom and stuff to stay the course in what you felt like, you know, you were supposed to do.
What was interesting was I had a personal tragedy. So when I was 32, so right in the middle of that, and we hadn't even made all that. So I started that with a family business advisor. Then my wife and I were in an accident, and she passed. So for about 90 days, that it just stopped. Like I didn't do anything, because I was just trying to recover, and then I was like, okay, well now I got to pick this thing up. So let's
you
go
had
have
a
some
couple
meetings.
kids by that time?
I had 2 kids, yeah.
Yes, you had 2 young kids, and
Yeah.
early 30s, head of a company, trying to take a new third generation. You lose your wife, and that's a lot of pressure for anybody.
I had a lot of good men in my life.
Yeah.
That were helping me, and that's, you know, that's honestly where I first got introduced to BLE. Gary Higgs was our Marketplace Ministries chaplain, and we had invited Gary to come into our Bible study. What my cousin and I recognized, you know, shortly after we started at the company, Daryl Scott, he's my older cousin, the one that used to pick me up and take me to work, is that there was tension in the family. Before we were even we were kind of lower level management, we were like, man, there's just some tension. You can just tell now. You know, we didn't know anything about it. It was kind of kept from us when we were kids. And we said, you know, how can we battle that? So we started a Bible study. And we said, you know what, we're going to just do a Bible study with just family members that are in the business. And we do that every Monday. We said, you know, if we just stay close and just invite the Lord in, that it'll sanctify these relationships. So all these, you know, very difficult conversations about who's going to be in charge of the company, who's going to run it, and who's going to make more money. I mean, that's a very real conversation.
Yeah.
But it was all protected, I think, because we made a decision just to come together and pray. And you know what? We're cousins and we're brothers in Christ before we do this. And let's remember that while we go through this journey, and so we don't lose who we are in that process.
And so there's about how many people in that group when you started?
So now we have, it's basically all of our family members and our CFO, Russell Fallwick. We invited him to join maybe 3 or 4 years after he started in the company. He's a strong believer, and so he comes in. But it doesn't matter, you know, we have family members that are at different levels of the company. So my cousin, who is, oh gosh, he's like 13 years younger than Daryl. So he entered the company, way later. So he entered as a supervisor. Daryl's running a company, and we would bring him in to the Bible study. He said, hey, you join we do this Bible study. This is what we do.
Wow.
You're coming on here. We do a Bible study every week. And, so come from your and so we kind of drop the org chart, let's don't,
Okay.
Neal's not in charge today, he's not running this meeting, this is a Bible study.
And
That's
that
what we
set
try
the
to do.
tone
So,
for it.
and Gary, we invited Gary to join our Bible study, and then he and Phil took over part of his ministry, because Phil was doing BLE and Marketplace at the time, and so then we had Phil come into our Bible study, and then that was right at the time personally when Gayla passed, and Phil was just investing in me, coming alongside me during that tragedy, but he walked, right through all that with us.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. So what value, when you look at your career, what value would you place on doing that, of what you've done, having that family Bible study?
No, I think it'd be impossible to do that challenge without it. I think the relationships you have, without having the Lord in there, I think it protects, it protected the relationship, protected the family unit, and so we can be a family today.
So,
we have a
yeah,
much better
so
chance.
what's it like when because when you go in that study, it sounds like you're able to put down the labels, so to speak. Everyone has equal footing before the Lord. When you walk back into your workplace where you have to make decisions, has that made it more difficult, less difficult? How's that played out in terms of, when you have these relationships with family members and things?
I think it makes it easier. I think it lowers pressure. Just in general, if you have a faith, it's like any other challenge in life. You take my yoke. It's light. Don't take your yoke. And so in business, you tend to bring it all on, like it's my job, and I have to get this done. And so it helps you manage stress. It helps you manage, put it down and just kind of go, you know what? At the end of the day, Jesus loves me, and none of this really matters in the big scheme of things. You can work anywhere. It's great if you can work in your family business, but let's put it in its proper place. I guess is what it helps you do. Just keep perspective on all of that.
And